Hello and welcome to another edition of the best in paranormal talk radio, Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennis, filling in for Dave Schrader. I know, I lied. I said he'd be back today, but, stuff comes up. He's on assignment today, but he will be back tomorrow. I swear, of course, tomorrow we also have Theater of the Mind as well. So an action-packed show on Friday. But today we have an amazing show, folks. I want to mention a couple things before we get into today's show with Anthony Sanchez. Today's show is going to be amazing. We're going to talk about his brand new movie, Haunted Minds. And I'm going to point you right to that site here in a moment, and so you can check out the movie completely. And today's show is going to be amazing, like I said. I want to mention, first of all, IWI this weekend. I'm the vice president and ring announcer for IWI, Independent Wrestling International, here in Minnesota. We're opening our brand new season in Coon Rapids at the American Legion on Crooked Lake Boulevard. 6:45 is when doors open. 7:30 is the bell time over there. $12 for adults, $8 for kids. Leva Bates, otherwise known as Blue Pants from NXT and from Impact Wrestling, will be our special guest over there to open up the season for IWI again this Saturday. 7:30 is bell time over there at the American Legion in Coon Rapids. Be sure to join us for that. Next, be sure to go to darknessevents.com for the last, and I'm telling you, the last of the Chicago Ghost Con tickets for the October 7th and 8th weekend. I said yesterday I thought there were 50 pair. There were only 20 pair for the weekend left. And they're going fast, folks. I'm not kidding you. They are going so fast, it's ridiculous. Again, Chicago Ghost Con, they're going like you wouldn't believe. Go to darknessevents.com. Click on the banner. It's the last event of the year that you can see Dave and I together. So make sure that you go to that website as well. And the last thing is, I really do love you people sometimes. I know sometimes I say I don't love you as much as Dave does. But a lot of you gave me quite a bit of feedback today over last night's show or yesterday's show. And just a little inside info for you. A little behind the scenes. It's Oz pulling back the curtain here from yesterday's show. After I got done taping yesterday's show with Charles Gordon, I took Charles Brandon, rather. I said Charles Gordon. I meant Charles Brandon. I took and I uploaded the show, and I thought to myself, you know what? I kind of took a deep breath, and I thought, well, I'm going to see how long it takes for the feedback to come back on it, because I know you folks like to give your 2 cents, and that's fine. That's fine. I encourage it. I love hearing your feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, and especially when it's funny. I look forward to the funnier stuff. One of the letters actually said something about they had a good laugh at the office over yesterday's show, and that if paper clips on the floor and rubber bands were godsends, then God is in their office every single day. I appreciated that one. That was pretty funny. And I get where people were coming from today. I get it. I have very thick skin, and people were very nice to me, but maybe a little slanted in their outlook of our guests yesterday. I get it, folks. Not every show's a winner. And hey, you know what? I get where you were coming from with yesterday's guest. If you have, and again, I love your suggestions. I love your feedback. Again, Tim at darknessradio.com or Dave at darknessradio.com, or hit us up on social media. I especially like the funny stuff. I'm not going to lie. You guys made my day today. Maybe someday, I might just bring this stuff to Parashare and read a few of the feed, but we'll call it paranormal feedback or something like that, and just read some of the feedback from some of the episodes that you guys weren't particularly happy about, because, boy, I tell you, some of those emails are pretty entertaining. Let's switch gears, though. Let's get into tonight's program, because tonight's program is a good one indeed. Before the program, I sat down and I watched a movie called Haunted Minds, the Ghostbox Sessions, and it is a great documentary made by our guest tonight, Anthony Sanchez. Anthony is the author of the explosive book UFO Highway. Anthony is the founder of Umbra Paranormal, a group dedicated to the understanding of the intricacies of paranormal science. In addition, he's the organizer of the UFO Paranormal Summit in Sacramento, which provides an unprecedented gathering of top experts to help share the latest emerging news, ideas, and technology. Anthony also is the developer of the Ghost Hunter Apps brand. Anthony is pretty much a paranormal entrepreneur. He's got books out. He's got movies out. He's developing apps. He's an inventor extraordinaire. Let's welcome to Beyond the Darkness, Anthony Sanchez. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, how's it going, man? Tim, thank you so much. You know, I've been wanting to be on Darkness Radio and now Beyond the Darkness for the longest time, and it's just like, it's finally happening. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being with us. You know, it's amazing that let's give a little background first about this movie. This movie specifically has to do with different investigations of famous haunted locations, but you're using sound. You're using Ghostbox and different versions of Ghostboxes at different haunted locations.
Right.
And you have some pretty famous paranormal people with you as well. You have Connie Willis, who's one of Dave's colleagues over on Coast to Coast AM. You have Steve Huff with you. And you go to these different locations and you're using, in fact, I think you're using a couple of Steve's inventions as well.
Right. Well, Steve's inventions are made by me. So
okay.
Steve's first app was the SCD-1, which is a Spirit Communications Device 1. And it's based on a concept that he came up with utilizing technology that I created. So together, we were able to put together the SCD-1 and then later on the SCD-2, which was a take on the SCD-1, but did something entirely different.
Okay.
Yeah, the technology is based on Bluetooth. We're the only group of paranormal researchers that are literally using scanning methods for the ultra high frequency. No one else is doing it. So we kind of have that market, that niche market. Until other people figure out how to do it, you know, I welcome them to, you know, introduce those tools to the paranormal.
Walk me through for a second here, Anthony. How does that come up in your brain when I take it you saw an original Frank's Box, Ghostbox, and said to yourself, there's got to be a better model. There's got to be a better way to do this. And there's got to be a clearer way to get voices from the dead through one of these machines. How do you figure out what am I going to do for the next generation? And how do you come to that conclusion?
Tim, this is where I'm going to blow your mind.
Okay.
I didn't think any of that. I had no clue about paranormal technologies in that sense. What happened was a friend of mine was speaking in Santa Paula, California at this GhostTown.tv event, which was held by Bill Murphy from the Sci-Fi Channel. At the time, the Sci-Fi Network, he was on this show with Ben Hansen called Fact or Fake Paranormal Files.
Yep.
And, you know, Ben being the FBI background and then Bill Murphy having the scientific, more experimental background. And so I ended up going to that show. The first thing that I was known for was my book, UFO Highway. You know, I've always been known as a UFO alien researcher, that part of that community. Mm-hmm. So when I went to this conference, I actually had a prototype of software that I had written for trips that I made to Area 51. And I wanted to scan the ultra high frequency because, you see, I already had a radio scanner that, you know, had the known frequencies for Area 51, and I could listen into the guys, the camo dudes, the guys that were parked outside, the perimeter Area 51. We could hear them talking about us. That wasn't interesting to me. Paul Benowitz was this guy in Dulce, New Mexico, who claims he found, you know, he discovered these radio transmissions between Kirtland Air Force Base and some alien contingent up near the Dulce area of New Mexico, near the Colorado border, on this reservation. And there's a whole famous story about that, and I won't go into that at the moment, but I figured, man, if Paul Benowitz was utilizing, you know, various frequencies that were outside of the known frequencies that are used by, you know, security forces and the military, I wanted to do something similar at Area 51 because I live up here in Northern California, and it's just a few hours away for me to go to Area 51, so I would do that quite often. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm a software developer. I have a degree in software engineering. I know there has to be a way to utilize Bluetooth technology, because I've already written applications to send wireless communications, chatting back and forth with people over the ultra high frequency. And the UHF band is part of what's called ISM, which is industrial, scientific, and medical radio frequencies. These are reserved radio frequencies that are used typically for wireless transmissions within those industries. Well, and that was in the beginning. Now we use them for Wi-Fi for everything practically. Mm-hmm. So I created a software application that'll take a Bluetooth adapter and utilize it to scan every 500 milliseconds. I'm scanning a frequency, and if I see some sort of an anomaly, because what I do is I programmatically draw a sine wave. If the sine wave comes back in a normal parameter that's within expected parameters, I know that there was nothing happening on that particular frequency. And if something was happening, what I did is for every known frequency and for every known signal strength, and this could be in the thousands, we're talking more than 10,000 because of the number of combinations, I would assign an MP3 file which had a unique audio signature. So all of the frequencies plus signal strengths had their own unique audio file. None of them were identical, and they all had a GUI ID, which is a 128-bit character, a unique character. It's like an ID. It's like a fingerprint. Okay. So if I heard repetitive returns, if I was getting because it's a pattern matching algorithm that I was using, if I just heard a bunch of gibberish and nothing was making sense, fine. That's like getting static. Mm-hmm. But if I start hearing repeat patterns, I'm picking up on something. And the reason why I use these audio files is because, and what I did was I recorded carrier files from real radio, and I just split them up into thousands of little snippets so that I could have unique audio signatures. The reason I did that is because there's nobody talking on the ultra high frequency. On the UHF, there are no radio stations. There's no music. There's no talking. Mm-hmm. There's none of that. Mm-hmm. But they're radio frequencies. They're real radio frequencies. They're just outside of the known frequencies that we use for terrestrial radio, like AM and FM. And anyway, I had that technology. I wrote essentially an app to try and listen to, anomalous, ambiguous, possible alien transmissions coming out of Area 51. And I will tell you, I did get some strange patterns coming out of Area 51 over the UHF. So I don't know if they were alien in nature, but they were definitely coming from the perimeter of Area 51. Anyhow, I ended up in Santa Paula, California. I had this prototype app for a couple of years. I ended up showing it to a couple of friends. And Bill Murphy was the one who said, you essentially created a K2 meter out of a laptop. And I'm like, what's a K2 meter? Because remember, in 2012, I'm kind of new to the whole paranormal game. Right. And he said, a K2 meter is an EMF detector. It's detecting electromagnetic fluctuations. And me being an engineer, I go, right, the same thing as RFI, which is radio frequency interference. Electromagnetic interference is the same exact thing as radio frequency interference. They're the same thing.
Well, something, Anthony, if I can stop you for a second, the way you were describing it there just about a minute or two ago, it almost sounded to me like you created a different type of ovilus.
In a sense, I did, because when you have, and a matter of fact, one of the apps evolved into that. I ended up creating an app called the Vox Spirit Radar, and it utilizes the UHF scanning. And using a ping algorithm, I'm able to determine the radius of, from the dongle or the adapter, the Bluetooth adapter, which usually extends out to about 32 feet. So you have this 32 foot circumference around wherever your laptop is. Mm-hmm. I'm able to determine using calculations of speed, transmissions, and, the hits on frequencies where within the circumference the actual hit took place. So I'm able to draw a little blip on a radar. So the reason why I wrote that app was because years ago there was a fake app all over Android being used by thousands of people. I'm not going to say the name of it, but it was a radar for detecting ghosts.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Right. And Ben Hansen and a bunch of other people were able to determine that it was a complete load of they reverse engineered the code, and they were able to essentially extract the APK file, which is an Android program, and they saw that the guy was essentially just randomly putting up a blip, doing nothing. And I said, come on. I said, you can't give the paranormal community a black eye like that. So me having the scientific and engineering background, I said, there's got to be a way. So with my Bluetooth technology, I said, okay, let's create a data bank of like thousands of words. And the words, remember how I told you about the MP3 files, those individual sounds? I said, okay, instead of using sounds, let's use words. So the Vox Spirit Radar would scan the UHF, and instead of giving you like one of my Ghostbox apps, give you these patterns, these audio patterns, instead it would generate words. So I created my own Ovilus essentially. That's
amazing.
Right.
And so that's the genesis of that invention. The one that gets me, the one from the film that I've yet to wrap my head around, and the one that also I'm going to admit, Anthony, makes me cringe a little, is the Geobox.
Right. That's created by a guy named George Brown. I didn't have anything to do with that, but Steve Huff worked with George Brown, and they created a Huff Paranormal Geobox edition. I'm not sure if the one that's in the film is that. I think the one in the film is one of the earlier versions that Steve had acquired from George. That thing, right? It's scanning radio frequencies, and it like all the other ghost boxes, what it's intended to do is to communicate back with you in real time during these ghost box sessions, at haunted locations. And yes, oh my goodness, that's a crazy invention that really is, knocking it out of the ballpark with regards to the paranormal community. It's like, you have your detractors. You have people that don't like it. Just like with my apps, you have people that don't understand the technology, therefore they can't stand it and they don't want to talk about it. But I think the positive outweighs the negative with regards to not only my apps, but the Geobox. There's a lot of people out there that own the Geobox, and they attest to the effectiveness of it.
So let me throw this at you, Anthony, because, for the average layperson who wants to, let's face it, who's a hobbyist, who goes out and wants to investigate, but, and wants to use these tools, but says, you know what, I don't know that I trust it because I can't quite wrap my head around it. How do you get someone to put their faith into it without talking over their head? Because a lot of times the kind of conversation that we're having now, and I'm not calling people dumb by saying this, but what I'm saying is, some people, just science isn't their thing. It isn't their thing. They don't really want to understand it. Just put the gadget in my hand and let me know that it works, but I want to have confidence that it works and that I'm not being fooled. So how is it that you can instill faith in somebody that, hey, you know what? I know this works for what it works for.
Well, it's okay. Let's look at George Brown's Geobox, right? When the Geobox first came out, I mean, people were literally ripping it apart and looking at the internals, the internal workings of the Geobox. And, there wasn't that much, there wasn't anything fancy going on with regards to the Geobox. Technologically, George created this little workhorse that, did a good job. It's kind of like with my apps. There were these videos that were coming out. People were just dumbfounded by the effectiveness of my apps. And a lot of them were fellow developers of paranormal tools, and they just couldn't. My apps became wildly successful. I mean, I've sold tens of thousands of apps on practically every continent where there's a human population. And I'm not making that up. Oceania, Australia, Africa, Europe, Asia, and in the country of Russia, out of Moscow, all of South America. I mean, I've sold apps everywhere. The paranormal is a global phenomenon. Now, I don't sell apps through iTunes and through the Apple iStore or the Android. I have an Android app, the very first one that I'm working on now, but I've always developed apps for Windows 7, Windows 8.1, Windows 10. So if you have a Windows laptop or a tablet, even a PC, that's where my apps work. Now, they're not meant for the PC. They're meant for tablets and laptops so that you can take them with you on haunted, paranormal investigations. But, I had people trying to reverse engineer my code. No one is ever reversing. Not even Microsoft could reverse engineer my code because I'm a trained software engineer, and I don't want people stealing my intellectual property, my IP. That's how I make a living.
Right.
So, but for me personally, I outright tell them exactly what I'm doing. I give them the science. I give them the links to consortiums that I belong to with other developers to help invent technologies to make my apps work. I hide nothing. And from the very beginning, I've told people exactly how I do it. For instance, I have a tool that creates, thousands of little snippets of audio. I didn't invent that. I got that from the guy who did it originally in Germany way back in the 90s, in the mid 90s. For what? For the purposes of creating some sort of an EVP tool that he was making. I took that technology. Well, I took the concept. I rewrote it from scratch. With much more modern coding, tools and techniques. But I employed that towards what ultimately would become Ghost Hunter apps as just one of the many facets that comprises the end product. So I let everybody know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not hiding anything. I've been working in Silicon Valley at major semiconductor companies for over 20 years. I have a software development agency that has worked for the federal government and the state government here in California, doing data analysis, business intelligence, whatever. I mean, I've done so much stuff. I have a long career in Silicon Valley. I've worked for Hewlett-Packard, NEC. I spent many years over at Intel Corporation. I have a background in software engineering, and I'm happy to share what I'm doing with others. Here's the thing that I found. A lot of the paranormal developers that are out there, they're learning it as they go along. They don't have my background or my experience, and I'm not trying to be rude in any sense of the word here. I'm just saying those are the guys that make YouTube videos trying to discredit me. Guess what? No one ever has, and they never will, because I'm not making anything up. I am creating real scientific tools that are based on three things: advanced mathematics, scientific principle, and the intrinsic embedded technology of the devices that we use, which are laptops and tablets. And soon, smartphones, because I have my very first Android app that is going to be coming out. It's 4 Ghostboxes in one. So it's a suite of Ghostboxes for Android users. And I'm really excited about that because I've never done one of those smartphone apps.
So let me ask you this, Anthony. Let's say you're sitting there, you're watching somebody break down your app on a YouTube video. The frustration has to build there as you're watching this.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Oh yeah. No.
I can hear it. What does it take for you to hold back from not wanting to go and destroy every single person who's trying to destroy your app?
I'm notorious for intellectually body slamming people when they do that to me, because I see it's hard to not get frustrated watching them describe something entirely incorrect, not understanding the technology that they're trying to debunk. And I'm just sitting here going, what are they doing? Why are they trying to? Obviously, ultimately, it's a monetary reason. It's for purposes of monetary gain on their part. I'm taking away money from them. That's how they see it. And my life has been threatened. I have actually had a person who threatened to kill me and my family because I infringed on his business model. And I'm not kidding. I had the Boston field office for the FBI reach out to me, and I had to call detectives here in Lincoln, California, where I live, and get them involved with the FBI. The wife at the time of the guy who threatened to kill me, she hated my guts because I guess I was destroying her husband at the time, his business, and so was Steve Huff. So this guy threatened to kill Steve Huff and his family and me and my family. It got out of hand.
Wow.
I had to go out and buy a gun and everything. I was like, hey, I'm going to protect mine. Well, I already had guns, but the point is, I was like, this is nuts. All I wanted to do was make a little app to go to Area 51. It evolved into, I created something similar to the K2 meter. I created all these great paranormal apps, which everybody is using. And there are people out there that now want to kill me. So it's not only people on YouTube trying to debunk my apps, which I've never done. It's people that have literally threatened to kill me before making these apps. Yeah, there was a time when I said it's not worth it. I'll do my radio software. I'll go back to that, which was on hiatus for a couple of years because Ghost Hunter apps took off. It really took off. I mean, I have thousands. I'm not going to say how many, but I have thousands of active customers who buy my apps. When I put out a new app, thousands are sold. So it made me think, was it worth it? But here's the thing. Why am I going to deny the people that believe in the technology that I create, that Steve Huff creates? Why are we going to deny them because of the rantings and the violent threats of somebody who, for all intents and purposes, they have their own crowd? It's like, it gets crazy. The paranormal is a very, very finicky community, the paranormal community. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of, jealousy and stuff. And it shouldn't have to be that way. We should all work together. Listen, I did a project with Dave Schrader, the darkzone.tv. And one thing I love about the Dark Zone, and you can learn more if you go to the darkzone.tv, that's the website. It's all about para-unity, paranormal unity. There is no infighting. It's all about coming together as individual investigators, paranormal teams, researchers, and sharing information and moving the field of paranormal studies forward in a positive direction.
And yeah, that's what it has to. But it's funny, you do get a lot of infighting, and for very stupid reasons at that.
Oh yeah.
Let's go back to the movie a little bit here, Anthony, and the genesis of the movie. So now you have these wonderful apps you've designed. You have these different mechanisms that you're using, for lack of a better term. These different ghost boxes you're using as you're going out and you're investigating. And I find it's interesting that the theme of the movie is simply sonics and what the camera is capturing.
Right.
Because there is some visual evidence in this movie as well, and I won't spoil it for anybody. You go watch it yourself. You can go watch it for free, and we'll give that link here. In fact, the link is ghosthunteraapps.com/hauntedmindsmovie. So, and you can check it out for yourself. It's free. It's right there on the website, and you can watch for yourself. And we encourage you to do so because it is quite a captivating documentary. Now, I find that intriguing because in today's day and age, every ghost hunting show, every ghost hunting documentary has to pull out every trick in the book, every tool at their disposal, everything that they can get their hands on. It seems like because, and I'm going to throw this out there. I'll just throw it out there, Anthony, and
just say it, Tim. Just say it.
It's everything is light on evidence and long on stall. Everything is everything is pretty much, we're trying to fill time, and we don't have a lot to fill time with. What I liked about the movie is not only the concept of it's really quite minimalist in that you've got enough evidence in front of you with between the camera and the ghost boxes, but at the same time,
right,
you don't stall. You don't. This isn't.
Part of my process, Tim, was I did not want to show the same thing over and over and over and over, building up to this crescendo where then, boom, we have one tiny little snippet of evidence, and then let's move on to the next thing. Or continue talking about that. That's what television does right now.
Right.
It doesn't matter what paranormal show you're watching. They show you a buildup repeatedly over and over and over and over until they finally get to the culmination of events leading to that particular climax. And then, you're like, wow, I just spent 20 minutes watching the same people walk down the same hallway, making the same startled expression before going to commercial 5 times.
Yeah.
Before getting to it. Listen, when I put together the team for Haunted Minds, I had Noreen Balovich, because she's like one of the most well-known people on YouTube with regards to discussion of the paranormal and all these other dark things. And she's incredible. She used to work with Tim Wood, who has Live Sci-Fi TV, and he had his thing. She did a lot of work with him in the beginning. Then they had their fallout. But Noreen on her own really stands out. And she's a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. With Noreen, I had David Spinks. And David Spinks was a real good friend of mine for a long time. But then again, David Spinks paired up with another friend of mine, David Weatherly, and the two of them had something personal against Steve Huff. So all of the footage that I ultimately paid for, I rented the USS Hornet, I rented the hotels, I rented everything. I paid for everything was an expense paid for by GhostHunterApps.com, my company, for the making of this movie. A lot of that I can't show. I mean, we had an incredible Gansfeld experiment in this gigantic meeting room on the USS Hornet, which would have been incredible to put in there. I couldn't put it in there now because Weatherly and Spinks didn't want to be a part of the movie because of Huff, whatever. So I had, 3 years of footage that I had to put together. Thank God Connie Willis and Noreen Balovich and Steve Huff did some amazing stuff, along with, Rick Prestel, my son Sean, and, the entire team that we had put together, that I was able to take those other two guys out. That's what they wanted. So I'd remove them from the movie, and we still had a great amount of content to put together. And you're right. When you watch the documentary, I'm not going to do what these TV shows do, which was to goad you into this, this sense of emotional suspense, this buildup that just keeps building. I don't do that. I get right to the point, period. Right. Every single location.
And it's not buildup with no payoff. It goes from location to location to location, mm-hmm. and it presents the history. You get the history right away. You get then you get into the investigation. You get the scenario, the issues, and then you get the evidence.
You get the evidence.
Yeah, and it's refreshing in that you're not left waiting, and you're not left hesitating, and you're not left empty. I mean, ultimately, sometimes, but watching some of these shows, you end up empty, and you go, well, what the heck did I just sit around and watch that for?
I can guarantee your listening audience, you will not get that feeling with this movie. With Haunted Minds, the Ghostbox sessions, and we don't just use my apps. That's one of the things I wanted to point out to people. We use a Frank's box. We use a Geo box. We use Mel meters, K2 meters. We have a whole assortment of paranormal equipment that people out there, the people watching, that they also use. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, we do use my apps because, I wanted to showcase my apps in real haunted locations and show you what they are capable of getting you with regards to results based on scanning ultra high frequency, which I think I'm the only person doing.
Let's do this, Anthony. Let's take our break right now. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about your team, your individual team members, what they bring to the movie. And mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about the locations and why you chose the locations you chose. Our guest is Anthony Sanchez, and the movie is amazing. And you can find it at GhostHunterApps.com, Haunted Minds Movie, and that's / Haunted Minds Movie. The name of the movie, Haunted Minds, the Ghostbox Sessions. And we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the movie itself and about Anthony's team members and what they brought to the table. It's all coming up next here on Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
Welcome back to the best in paranormal talk radio, Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennis in for Dave Schrader. A reminder, Dave is on Coast to Coast AM this weekend. Go to coasttocoastam.com/stations to find the station in your area where you can check him out this Friday and Saturday. I know on Friday night he's got Michael Nesmith. I almost said Michael Smith. Michael Nesmith from the Mike Nesmith from the Monkees, and they'll be talking a little bit on actually the whole night, I believe, on Friday night. and much, much more. Again, Friday and Saturday night, you can catch Dave on Coast to Coast AM. It's coasttocoastam.com. And again, /stations to find a station in your area where you can listen to Dave live or sign up for the Insiders Club. It's less than 15 cents a day. You can find that at coasttocoastam.com as well. And be sure to come out and see me at IWI on Saturday night in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. It's at the American Legion off of Crooked Lake Boulevard. It's our season opener. Leva Bates, otherwise known as Blue Pants, will be wrestling a special mixed tag team match. And 7:30 is the bell time over there at the American Legion in Coon Rapids off of Crooked Lake Boulevard. Tickets are $12 for adults, $8 for kids, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday night. Anthony Sanchez is our guest tonight, and we're talking about the movie Haunted Minds, the Ghostbox Sessions. And I got to ask you, Anthony, you've got a core of 4 here, but you had much more than just 4 people in the movie. But let's talk about the core of 4 here. And let's start with Dave's colleague over on Coast to Coast AM, Connie Willis. How did you come about bringing Connie into the fold for the movie?
Right, Connie and I became acquainted through Facebook, and I ended up appearing on her show to discuss ghost hunter apps. Mm-hmm. And then Steve Huff was on her show, and this is way before we did Haunted Minds, before we did any of that. There was no team at that time. Mm-hmm. We just ended up being guests on Coast to Coast AM through Connie, and she's an incredible, host, and she's just a wonderful person. And incidentally, Connie has this YouTube channel called Blue Rock Talk. So if you want to look up who we're talking about, just go to YouTube, go to Blue Rock Talk, and you'll find Connie. And she works with Dave over at Coast.
Yep.
Connie is a sensitive in the sense that she picks up on paranormal activity. I mean, you can look at Connie and you can literally see goosebumps on her arms and know that something is happening in the room where you are. So having Connie with us was incredible because, first of all, she's personal friends with Bishop James Long, mm-hmm. who's well known. He did that whole thing on television with what's the name of the Chip Coffey? They did a live exorcism on TV. That's one of her best friends, or her closest friends, and they hang out and they do investigations. And so having her on board our team, I knew I was going to have a professional, paranormal investigator. And she has a background in cryptozoology as well. So she's not just a pretty face. Connie knows what she's doing. She knows the paranormal business. She knows the game. She knows exactly how to conduct herself on an investigation. So she was critical to the success of the team. So I already mentioned Noreen Balovich. Again, Noreen, one of the, preeminent, interviewers on YouTube. She has her show and she's been around for a while too. So I like the balance between those two. Now, they didn't get to work together because Connie was with me and the team at here in Lincoln, California at the Manzanita Cemetery. Mm-hmm. She was with us at the Georgetown Hotel and Bar in Georgetown, California, and which has been on many TV shows and stuff, another haunted location. And she was with us at Nevada in Virginia City and Gold Hill, Nevada at the Haunted Cabin, which was a temporary morgue. This is a cabin that was built in 1836, and it was a temporary morgue during one of the mining accidents right across the street from the cabin at the silver mines right there in Gold Hill. And so Connie was with us throughout. She figures preeminent throughout the entire film. And then the final location, which is at the USS Hornet, that's where Noreen's husband actually works on the ship. He's one of the docents of because it's a museum now. Yeah. The USS Hornet. So her husband is he's a former detective for, I believe, the city of South San Francisco, something like 20 plus years, and now he works there. We just had unfettered access to all these amazing locations. Steve Huff was a part of the team as well, and me building Ghostboxes when I first started doing this, after I came back from Santa Pella at the Ghost Town event, and all these paranormal guys were saying, dude, you need to turn that alien app into a ghost hunting app because it's detecting radio frequency interference. Not long after that, when I started putting out my first apps, I got in touch with Steve Huff. People said, "Oh, you need to contact Steve Huff. You need to get in touch with this guy, Steve Huff." And he and I just hit it off. He was this amazing investigator. He's like a spirit magnet. I mean, the guy just attracts spirits. And there are some people who have that ability. Steve's one of them. I believe Connie's another person like that. One of the people that was in the film with us was Linda Potter, and she's a very good friend of mine. And she met with us in Nevada. And she's a past life regressionist. She's a sensitive. She's a paranormal investigator. She's a trained past life regressionist. That's what she does. And I really wanted her to figure in the movie. Here's the problem.
Okay.
I had David Weatherly and Dave Spinks in the movie as well. Mm-hmm. But after they had their fallout with Steve Huff, which wasn't even during the filming, it came weeks after. They didn't want to be in the movie anymore. I had to, remove all of that footage. Linda Potter was in like every scene with those two guys. So, I felt so bad for Linda. Ooh. But, anyhow, but yeah, I want to mention her because she was critical to the success of everything that happened in Nevada. But, my son, Sean, was helping me with the filming, and he was doing a lot of the key grip work, which was the electrical, the filming. And so was Rick Prestel, who is a researcher from the MUFON organization here in Sacramento, California. And Rick and my son essentially did a lot of the filming. Spinks provided a lot of the filming, as did Huff. So it was a group effort. That's why we have so much incredible footage inside of this documentary.
I know during the documentary, Rick actually has a pretty profound personal experience with a spirit in there. And again, you can go to ghostcenter.apps.com, Haunted Minds movie /Haunted Minds movie, and see the documentary for yourself to see Rick's experience. I'm curious as far as the past life regression. How does it tie in? This was in Virginia City, correct? In the cabin. How does it directly tie to any of the members of the team, or why did you bring her in for that?
Because I actually wanted to conduct past life regression with anybody that had some sort of an abnormal feeling, anything that was coming up anomalous in the the whole emotional vibe from the investigators. Mm-hmm. If somebody was there, I wanted to make sure that Linda could tap into whatever may have been bothering them at that time. Not to mention Linda is a paranormal investigator herself. But man, it would have been incredible to have Linda, tap into whatever was going on at that moment using her past life regression skills. Because sometimes this is what a lot of paranormal experts believe. They believe that people can inherit entities, the spiritual energy of an entity, and take on their persona during an investigation. You ever see how Zach Baggins, he's like an emotional magnet, spirit magnet himself, right? You ever see how he gets kind of affected? Yeah. A lot of people think it's fake. I don't believe it's fake. I do believe that people can get affected by their surroundings. It's environmental. If the K2 meter is going off, if a Mel meter is going off, if my mini box or SED2 is picking up all of this crazy language over the ultra high frequency, then that means the environment is being affected by something. And in the paranormal, we believe that if radio frequency interference is occurring, electromagnetic interference is occurring, that there's something paranormal happening. When you discount anything that could be man-made, you want to make sure that there are no electrical, interferences coming from wiring throughout the building or electrical outlets. When you can discount all of that, and you've effectually, created what we call a theoretical Faraday cage, meaning, okay, we know this place has nothing man-made that will affect us during our session, and you start picking up crazy stuff, that's when you know that something's happening.
So I'm wondering, in your eyes, is a past life regression kind of like a stepsister or stepbrother to psychic ability? Is it in your eyes? Can you tap in like in a back door to something that might have happened in the past directly on a location?
Tim, I'm telling you, you definitely have to have Linda on as a guest in the future, Linda Potter. Past life regression is definitely, in my mind, a psychic ability. These people can literally do almost like a Vulcan mind meld and get into the psyche of these people and look back in time and pull out, snippets of these histories that go way back and tell you or tell them, because ultimately the client is working with the past life regressionist. They can tell them, what was going on, way back in another existence. It's something that has blown me away, and I truly believe in that. And it's, for me to come into this whole paranormal, I actually, for my book UFO Highway, I actually had memory regression done to me. And I didn't believe in it at the time, but I needed to, because I was shown these pictures of this supposed facility that this retired United States Air Force colonel had worked at, supposedly alongside aliens. And I needed to recall that. I wasn't allowed to keep these Polaroid, pictures, these images. So I had to go through a memory regression, and then they pulled it out. Oh my God. And I had this artist do the detail, and it was like recreating the photographs. So I know that memory regression of all sorts, is a very powerful tool.
I have a lot of different thoughts going through my head right now. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to throw at you first. The first thought that I got to throw out here is, who has the connection to Virginia City? Because to me, it seems like if you were bringing her with on that case, then somebody must have a draw to Virginia City and to the cabin that's so strong that one of you wanted to know how you were connected to it somehow, some way.
I wanted to know how Linda was connected to it. The past life regressions, get this. 2 years before this trip, Linda, Rick, 3AM Paranormal from Los Angeles, that was Rebecca Fox. Who else was there? Ed Grimsley, he was on Coast to Coast many times. He was a UFO night vision guy. And then Tim Wood from Live Sci-Fi. And we had a group of us. We all went to this exact cabin a couple years prior. Now, I had a Class A EVP. I had a little Olympus recorder in my room. And there was a woman that I recorded. Literally, after I hit the record button, you can hear me walking out of the room. I go into the dining area, and you can hear all of us talking at the dining area. And I remember vividly Rebecca, Linda, and Rebecca's ex-husband at the time. It was just the four of us. And on the recorder, nobody could have gone into my room because we were right there adjacent to it. We were about maybe 20 feet away from my room. A woman goes, "Anthony," and she said it again. "Anthony." And I lost it when I heard that, because I had never collected a Class A EVP on a regular recorder before. Everybody heard it. We all went nuts. And I was like, what is going on? It freaked me out. Well, the day before that was the second day we were at the cabin. Linda and I were sitting on the couch, and we were talking with Rebecca's ex-husband at the time. I don't recall his name. And I just got the chills all throughout my back, and I saw Linda get startled, as did this guy. And the two of them looked behind me towards the stairwell like they saw something. And I turned around, and I swear to God, I saw like the wispiness of this, like a nightgown or something, just the tail end of it. And the two of them said they saw a woman from the 1800s wearing like a bonnet with like a nightgown, like one of them, those old style nightgowns, walking up the steps, like peer down at them, then turn around and walk up. Dude, it was so real. And it just, oh my God, it's giving me the chills right now as I'm talking about it. I literally have the chills all over my arms and my back. That place is haunted. That place, something happened there. I didn't know about it being a morgue at the time, that the family that lived there had to turn their living room into a morgue. I had no idea. So that's why I brought Linda back with us. And I figured if someone like Connie or Steve taps into, one of those entities from that house, that cabin, I wanted Linda there to be able to talk with them and maybe calm them down, or, as well as get information from them. But again, like I said, the footage of Linda incorporated, both the Daves, Dave Spinks and David Weatherly, and those guys didn't want to be in the movie, so we had to remove that footage. And I will tell you this: Connie Willis was literally thrown down the stairwell, and this is it kind of curves down. It's one of those. It's an old style, cabin, so it kind of curves up to the second floor from the base, from the living room, and she got thrown down. And there's actually footage in the movie where you can hear a voice saying, "Get out," and the lights like explode, and you see Connie freak out.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one of the giveaways. I didn't want to get. I mean, yeah, okay, I'm giving that away in the movie, but you'll see. You will see.
Yeah, it is kind of an alarming scene to see how genuinely spooked Connie is at that moment. The one thing that I'm curious about here too, and I'm going to throw the suggestion out there too, Anthony, is when an investigator stops being partial and becomes too emotionally invested in an investigation, I wonder, much like, Hans Holzer suggested that every investigation should have a good transmedium in it. And I'm wondering if you have a past life regressionist there, or someone who is there and somebody feels tied to a location. I would even go back to a random location, like you guys did the Hornet. If you're aboard the Hornet and you bring an investigator who may feel like they're somehow personally tied in a past life to it, if you tend to get too tied to a location, do you feel like maybe an investigator's mind could spin out of control, or they could become too emotionally involved in something where they're not remaining partial to what they're seeing in front of them?
And that's the reason why I chose locations that Connie and Steve had never been to. Okay. And David Weatherly had never been to that location. As a matter of fact, none of them, even David Spinks, none of them had been to. None of them went to the old Pioneer Cemetery in Manzanita in Lincoln. None of them had been to the Georgetown Hotel. None of them had been to the haunted cabin in Gold Hill, right there in Virginia City. Okay. David Spinks had been to the USS Hornet, but we didn't use that footage. I flew him in he's from West Virginia, and we flew him in to go to the USS Hornet. Now, Noreen's husband works there, but Noreen is a very, very, even, tempered type of individual. And she takes the game, this whole paranormal game really seriously. So she doesn't allow herself to become too emotionally invested in any one location, especially one where her husband works at. So she knows that there's haunted activity there on the USS Hornet, and she comes in with the perspective of, every time as an outside researcher, and she doesn't let herself get too emotionally involved. So that coupled with all of the other, key players going to locations that they had never been to, that was critical. Plus, I wanted Linda Potter there to have this calming presence, and she really did do that. She really did do that. Rick and my son, they had, they played an important role too. It was to help maintain professionalism throughout, and to not let any type of emotional upheaval take over. We talked about this. We literally, when we went to the Georgetown Hotel, I had everybody's, Connie, Steve, both the Daves, Rick, my son. I had all of us sit down in the hallway and have a meeting. It was just like, when you go into a boardroom and you talk with with your shareholders or whatever, because you all have a stake in whatever it is you're working towards. I had that same type of discussion with these guys. I come from a corporate background, so I was able to have that. And I tell you what, everybody did a tremendous job. That's why the movie's so good.
Let me ask you this. What was the mindset behind these locations, the different locations you picked? Because they're varying. They're different. You have the cemetery with the outside location, the different varying factors, when it comes to investigating. Right. You've got more well-known locations that maybe a lot of different investigators have been on, like the Hornet, that they can relate to. Right. What was your criteria for choosing the different locations that you did?
Well, I actually took some suggestions from Noreen Balovich. We had some other locations that we had discussed. Like we we were going to go to the East Bay, and man, we had access to an Oddfellows house. This is a group that's kind of like the Freemasons.
Yeah. Yep.
Charlie Chaplin and a couple of presidents belonged to the Oddfellows Society. Mm-hmm. And you can look it up in Wikipedia, and these guys played an important role, in American history as well. And they were kind of a secretive fraternal order. And we had access to one of those locations in the East Bay where Charlie Chaplin had actually been there as a member. But we ended up not doing that. And so, it was a lot of research. I wanted to do a cemetery. I wanted to do something with, the military. I wanted to do something from the 1800s. I ended up getting 2 locations from the 1800s. The Georgetown Hotel and Bar, which was a brothel at one point, and then the cabin in Gold Hill, which was an old brewery at one point. It's called the Brewery Lodge, mm-hmm. and it turns out it was a morgue at one point. So, we ended up hitting it out of the park with regards to locations. And then, oh my God, how can we not talk about the Boulderado Hotel in Boulder, Colorado? Yeah,
that was an interesting location.
Holy shamoly, people are very familiar with the Stanley Hotel from the movie The Shining. Mm-hmm. And, that was just 25 minutes away from where we were mm-hmm. in Boulder. So this place had its own history. And, of course, we cover that in the movie. Mm-hmm. And it was just gorgeous. And I had been invited by Gaia.com, George Norrie's show from Coast to Coast. He has a show called Beyond Belief. And then Jay Widener, the famous documentary director and researcher, the guy who's involved with the Nazca, mummies that they're talking about right now, he invited me to be on his show, Deep Space. So I had no idea they were going to be putting me up in this amazing location. And I said, I left a bunch of clothes back here in California, and I brought all cameras with me and laptops and paranormal gear. So there's no way I'm not going to film at this location. And I had 3 days at the Boulderado Hotel. It was incredible. And yes, it is a very haunted location.
Now, can I ask you one specific question about the Boulderton? You did something interesting in your investigative technique that I don't know that I would have done. And I got to ask you the question about it. And again, folks, you got to see the movie. It's at ghosthunteraapps.com/hauntedmindsmovie. And it's free. Go check it out by all means.
Yeah, hauntedmindsmovie.html. If you just go to the page, there's a bunch of links to that page. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so in that, you start the investigation. You do a session. You get some negative stuff that comes through to you from the first session.
Right.
You decide to get up and kind of clear I guess, how did you put it in the movie? You kind of clear the air to kind of reset, to kind of.
Right. That's when I got up and I had to get out of the room because it felt like there was a dark cloud over me. It literally felt like I was under this heavy fog. And I said, nope. I got to get the hell out of this room. So I got up, I went out to the lobby, I did my whole thing. I went on the elevator ride. There's just no way I was going to stay in that room. And I said, I have to let the room clear because I was attracting something. And you saw the movie.
Yeah.
And
yep.
It was very dark. And I said, okay. So once I felt that I had cleared, now I had crystals with me, I had organite with me, I had a lot of the little protective, elements that I take with me. I actually make my own organite. I have, organite is essentially, it's you're compressing crystals with a combination of metals, and it creates a protective boundary. And you can learn all about organite on the internet, but not that many people in the paranormal use it. Steve Huff uses it. I'm one of the other people that use it. Once I felt the room had cleared, I got back and I began to. I'm not into provoking. There's a lot of paranormal people out there that like to challenge the spirits. They like to literally challenge them to a fight.
Right. And that's where I was going with this is that in that heaviness, when you start to feel something coming on, there's a lot of investigators that would have continued to push. At that point, it's kind of like you got that fish that's biting on the hook. Do you set the hook and really go in and try to pull in the big one?
Tim, it was already hooked. Okay. I already had it. I knew it. I knew that if I left that room and when I came back, the minute I started up a session, I knew that I had already hooked and reeled in that fish and it was there. So you have to remember, some people will like to go to that. Do you think I want to become possessed at that moment like the way Zach Baggins does on his shows? Hell no. No. If you watch the film, you see that I'll say, okay, I'm back in the room and I literally am talking to the spirits and I'm saying, I am not here to provoke you. I'm not here to test you. I am here to communicate with you. I want to know what it is that's keeping you here. Is there a way that I can help you cross over into the light? That's my method. I'm not there to say, move that damn stick, move that cup. If you're here, turn that TV on. I'm not doing that. Why upset the spirits? That's not helping them cross over. The purpose that I'm in the paranormal for is I follow the model that Steve Huff puts out there, which is, okay, let's communicate for the purposes of tying in to whatever vibe is happening and trying to control it in a positive way and discover, is this an entity? Is this a child? Is this a person who lost a loved one? Is this a person who's stuck here? Are they in some sort of purgatory? Do they want to cross over to the light? Let's try to show them the light and see if they're receptive. If they're not, well, okay, we tried. But no, I'm not into the provoking thing. But Tim, I didn't need to provoke, and you saw what I got.
Right. But let me ask you this, Anthony, in that, I guess the point I was trying to make is that in that moment when you kind of back off it, and this is what I'm trying to get at with the spirit. There's two. I'm not communicating this very well, but there's two lines of thought here when it comes to that spirit. One is that, and some people might say it's a grandiose line of thought on your part to think that you can cross that spirit over. Maybe that spirit doesn't want to go anywhere. Maybe that spirit is feeding off your apprehension. Maybe that spirit is feeding off what is perceived as fear, or what is perceived as, that apprehension, or that lack of, what's the word I want to use? That they're there simply
I'm not trying to be pretentious in any way.
No. And don't get me wrong, Anthony. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they normally are there to get their kicks by scaring people and to feed off that fear and to be that earthly presence that's here. And they're not going anywhere. They don't want to go anywhere. So by you taking that break and coming back, all you've done is you've just given it a bit of a rest, and when you come back, it's just going to start up over again. It's like starting to pick a scab, let it bleed a little bit, and start to scab over again, and now you're going to pick it again.
Well, sometimes I have found, and not just me, many paranormal investigators, there's more than one spirit at a location sometimes, and sometimes you'll have more than one communicating with you. When I left that room, I knew that I had been in contact with the negative spirit. When I came back, my hope was that based on the information that I had received, that I was going to be communicating with non-negative entities. And yes, is it somewhat pretentious of me to think that I can help any spirit cross over? It would be, but I don't think that. No, I'm not saying that I have the ability to, cross spirits over. Nobody truly does. Mm-hmm. And when they do, if they do, and they manage to get it recorded on film, it's a miracle. It literally is a miracle. And I have seen paranormals, very good paranormal, mediums do that. And I don't think I've ever successfully done it, but I have tried, because to me, being a paranormal investigator is not about provoking. It's about trying to communicate with the other side and be of assistance if possible.
Right. And I understand that. I guess the school of thought being this, Jackie's been aboard the Queen Mary, and you're from California. Jackie's been aboard the Queen Mary for how many years, and how many people have claimed to have crossed her over, and thank God she's free now. She's free to go to the light, and she's right back the next, hour and a half talking to the next group. I mean, how many times has that happened? God knows she's been crossed over probably 3 times a day and twice on Sundays. So, to think that, we have this almighty power of crossing people over, sometimes I think we exaggerate a little bit too much sometimes and think that we're a little more powerful than we actually are.
And that's why I'm not ashamed to admit I don't think I've ever done it. I've tried, but I don't think I've ever been successful. But here's the thing, though. In trying, I'm trying to leave a positive footprint at that location. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to let these spirits know, okay, if you want to scare the hell out of people, that's what you do. But if there are spirits there that, don't know why they're there, they're lost souls, I don't want to leave a negative footprint at that location when I, as an investigator, depart.
Okay. I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. You've done the initial set of investigations. There's a hint that maybe you'd like to do this a second time, or that you'd like to do another film.
Connie, I've already talked with Connie. We're definitely going to do a follow-up to Haunted Minds. There'll be a part 2. Okay.
So in that, let me ask you this first question. The first question would be, if you had your wish list of locations, where would you like to take it?
I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm a native to the Bay Area. I was born in San Jose, California. I would love to go to the Winchester Mystery House.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely the Winchester Mystery House. I want to do the God, there's so many locations, man. There are so many locations. The Queen Mary. I would love to do the Queen Mary. Mm-hmm. So that's another ship that I'd like to go to. The Queen Mary, the Winchester Mystery House. I'd love to go back east. I would love to go back east. I'd like to go to the Midwest and to the East Coast. And there are so many locations out there. The list is just too long.
I'm curious if Connie has brought up anything about, because she's huge into Bigfoot. You mentioned she's a huge cryptid person, but she's huge into Bigfoot. Has she ever brought up something about trying to capture something with Bigfoot using any of the spirit boxes or any of the audio equipment?
No, I don't know if she has. I mean, I actually sent Connie, as a gift, I gave her a brand new Dell tablet loaded with all my apps, because poor Connie, she didn't know how to install these things. And, she was like, I don't know how to do that. So I loaded it up and I sent it to her, and I even registered them all and all that. But I don't know. But I know that her and Bishop James Long, that they I think they went to a cemetery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude, I think he ended up getting migraine headaches or something like that, she told me. So.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it can, but I don't know about as far as using it for cryptozoology. No.
So on the second movie, I take it Connie would be on the team, Steve would be on the team. Would you keep the same team, or would you include some different people? Do you have an idea of who you would put on the team?
I would love for Steve Huff. I would love for Steve Huff to come back, but he's on a break right now from the paranormal. Steve's been dealing with a lot of, dark entities and stuff, demonic type entities. And he literally has taken a break from the paranormal.
Okay.
Right now, he hasn't done a paranormal session in weeks. I know he just purchased a DDR 60 from a Panasonic.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Constantinos used to, like Debbie, the one she used to use.
That's the holy grail right there.
Yeah, he just bought one, and I know he caught something unique. He caught something on it, and most people don't realize it, but I had one at once upon a time.
Okay,
and I ended up sending it to a friend of mine in Phoenix, Arizona, and because we were exchanging ghost boxes and stuff, and he's a good guy, and I sent him mine, and I actually had the next generation model, which came out the following year after the DR60. Mm-hmm. And that one that I sent him is still worth like $800, $900 right now on eBay. And the DR60 sells for $1,000 or more. I've seen it sell for $3,000 on eBay.
Okay.
Now, my app that I created, the SCD2, I literally created a virtual Panasonic DR60.
Really?
Yeah, for $20 you can have your own, and it works just as good.
Now, let me ask you this. Oh, I'm so glad you just said that.
I'm using digital signal processing effects to make it match the audio patterns, the audio recording mechanism of the DR60.
Okay, so was it because for a lot of years they said with the DR60 it was the faulty shielding that caused the defect? At least that's what Panasonic said. It was the faulty shielding that caused a defect in the actual recording, and that was the ghost you were hearing on the recording.
Right. They said that the breathing or air would cause these anomalous sounds.
Right. Now, you're saying it's not. You're saying that it's something different.
You know, I think that the lack of shielding is what gives it its ability to pick up on non-audible sounds that we listen. When you watched, the Constantinos on the Queen Mary with Zach Baggins and his team.
Well, I've actually worked with the Constantinos quite a bit, so yeah, I've seen it firsthand. Like, in the same
by
room.
the way, may they both rest in peace.
Yeah,
feel so bad for that entire family, but yeah, you can, the one that I had was it operated. By the way, the same internal mechanism of the DR60 is exactly what was in the one that I had, which was the next generation for the next year, the follow-up model. The only difference was there was a couple of extra buttons. That was the only difference.
So they didn't change the shielding at all in it?
No, they did not change the shielding to that next generation model. So they are identical in the way that they process audio. That's why the other one is even expensive. But the one that came out after that, they had addressed shielding, and it's not the same. So here's the thing. I've done many sessions where there was like zero air in the room, zero airflow in the room. And so that cannot be attributed. And I'm holding it at arm's length away, the device, as I'm recording. And there's no way that anyone was breathing or there was airflow affecting the device. Therefore, what we heard were non-audible, recordings that were picked up by the device that, through the device itself, we were able to hear people's voices. It's like, come on, I'm not going to buy that it's not, an effective device. There truly is something to the device. And, it's a 1 in a million, coincidence on the integrated circuitry, with the physical, encasing. It will never happen again. Now, when we created the SCD2, I'm actually going to that page right now. When we created the SCD2, I wanted to literally create the RR-DR60 in a virtual sense. I did the best that I could. And I will tell you this. I have had hundreds of EVPs emailed to me from SCD2 owners who use the internal and by the way, I couldn't call it Panasonic, so we called it Parasonic.
Very nice. Yeah.
So we didn't get sued, right? So we called it Parasonic IC recorder. The EVPs are, and it depends with this device. It depends on what mic you're using. We've had people that have used Audio-Technica microphones, CAD U37 microphones, USB, condenser mics. It depends on the mic quality. The better the mic, the more sensitive the recorder. And you know what? For $19, actually, now I don't even sell my apps for $19 anymore. I've lowered my prices to $9.99 for the fall sale, which is still going on. Okay. So all these people that were buying my apps for $20 a piece, they're like, that's too expensive. Look, now they can get it for $10. So these are apps that used to sell for $50, and guess what? People would pay $50 for our apps back in 2014 and 2015.
So you can finally answer this question for most people then, Anthony, and most people, most skeptics used to say when you would see Mark and Debbie work, they would hold the RRDR60 in their hand. They would hold it flat in their hand and using the thumb on one edge of the recorder and the forefinger in the other. And the skeptics, or I should say the cynics, or the ones that thought they had them debunked, so that they would rub, and I'm holding my iPhone here, and I'm going to hold it up to my microphone, and they would hear this.
Right.
You hear what I'm doing there? I'm rubbing my thumb on my iPhone.
Yeah.
They said that's how you would create the sound of a growling demon or a demon saying "get out." Said essentially it was them rubbing the casing on the recorder, and that was the microphone picking up the rubbing on the casing that would create a demon, quote unquote, every time. Now,
and here's what I say to that. How can you explain all the other owners of Panasonic RR-DR60s, the IC recorder, who have made videos of them holding it at arm's length the way that I do, in a different fashion so that they're not obstructing the recording, the recording pinhole, right? Mm-hmm. How do you explain the EVPs that they captured where they're not moving or rubbing the device?
That's why I was asking. So that by you creating this engine, you basically you blow that out of the water.
Right. So and now what we're doing is we're allowing people to utilize their tablets, right? Mm-hmm. So like for instance, I have a Dell Venue Pro, a Dell Venue 8 Pro. It cost me like what, $130 on Amazon, brand new. And I have the SCD2 loaded on it. And I don't even plug in a mic. I use the microphone that's built into the tablet for when I record my EVP sessions. I just walk around, or I literally put it on the table, hit record, and nobody's touching the tablet. And that's how we record our EVPs.
And that's picking up EVP?
Of course it picks up EVPs. There are a bunch of videos out there on the internet.
Wow.
Not to mention, I personally have captured EVPs using the virtual Panasonic device.
See,
I actually have a program called EVP Analyzer, which is a highly sensitive, recorder that captures device. We have actually captured EVPs live during YouTube live streams, Noreen and I, where on the audio spectrum, when we hear growling, we'll see the faces of demons appear on the EVP Analyzer. This is crazy stuff.
Boy, I'll say you're just blowing my mind with the whole RR-DR60 engine thing. I'm still wrapping my head around that. Because the whole idea was, I guess the whole idea was the higher the model, at least in my head, it was the higher the model of recorder or the more expensive the model of recorder, the better the shielding was, the more I wouldn't want to use it because it would essentially not catch EVP as well, I guess. So I was always going out and buying junk recorders because I figured, you know what, somewhere in there's got to be another RR-DR60.
Right. The other one, I had the RRQ R400, which is a really good one. That's the next generation model that came after the RRD60.
Okay.
The RRDR60. I had the RRQ R400. Dude, incredible.
Really?
That one still sells for $600 to $900 if you can find one.
Okay.
Now I gave mine to my friend Tony in Phoenix because he's like a serious ITC guy. ITC is instrumental transcommunication. These are people that specifically look for EVPs. That's their game. They look for EVPs when they go ghost hunting. They're not interested in shadows. They're not interested in orbs. They're not interested in full body apparitions. They don't care about that. People who are in the business of ITC, instrumental transcommunication, they are seeking Class A EVPs. So I had Andrew Openlander build me an Andes box, a one of a kind, which I actually gave him the design specifications for mine. And I also gave that to Tony because dude, this guy's just incredible. He's one of the best. He's one of the best out there. Steve Huff is obviously incredible when it comes to ITC. But my buddy Tony in Phoenix, he has an armada of tools, and he owns the RRQR 400 that I gave him. I think I gave him the RRQR 200 actually. But by the way, it doesn't matter; they're the same device. It's just more disk based essentially.
Wow.
Recording space. Yeah.
Wow, interesting stuff. So, okay, so let me ask you this: I've asked you about locations. I've asked you about team members you do on the next movie. If you had to use, let's say, two different pieces of equipment that you didn't use that are on the wish list for the next movie, what would you reach out and grab for this next movie that you really want to work with?
Well, for me personally, I have a tool that I have my own tool that I wrote called GhostCam Pro, and it does three things. One, so this is a tool that I wrote that, by the way, I used to sell this thing for $99 and it sold a ton of them. Now I'm only selling it for $10.
Wow.
But anyhow, this is why it's crazy. I actually have military grade motion detection for targeting systems used to catch ghosts in it. Yeah, so I have motion detection that's a military grade built for targeting systems that are used in the military right now. Fractal patterning, thermal patterning, and bio patterning. And I also have, and it could use unlimited USB webcams, even infrared cams it'll work with. And I have on stereo audio spectrums capturing EVPs at the time of the recordings. Not to mention, I have a thermal detection built-in device which will allow you to plug in a USB temperature detector, and it will tell you if there's a cold drop, a cold shift, right? Mm-hmm. So you can even program it to say, hey, if there's anything more than a 3-degree drop or a 3-degree jump upward in heat, take an instant photograph and or video. Right. So that is a cool tool, and I didn't get to use it on this because the footage where I did use it, unfortunately, it was with the people that didn't want to be in the movie. So, So next time I will take that with me. And then I want to get a Frank's box and have the Frank's box be a little bit more preeminent in the next film, because I love the Frank's box. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very good piece of equipment. It's still a very good piece of equipment in the original. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Anthony, we're running up against the clock here, but again, the website is ghosthunteraapps.com/hauntedmindsmovie.html. We'll put the link for the website on podcast1.com on our Podcast One page and in the description for the podcast tonight. And also we'll put some other links to Anthony that you can follow along, and including for his book UFO Highway. .com and others, because you got to check out everything that Anthony's doing. He's doing some amazing stuff here in the paranormal. Anthony Sanchez, thank you very much for being with us tonight, and please come back.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate being on the show with you guys, and it was an honor. Thank you.
Well, it was our pleasure, sir. And again, we would love to have you back anytime. Folks, Dave is back tomorrow. Tomorrow again is Friday. It's Theater of the Mind Day, so we'll be delving into one of your true stories for Theater of the Mind tomorrow. And we'll also be delving into more of the strange and supernatural as Dave returns here on the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.